In a world that rewards constant availability, where you're expected to reply instantly, to care endlessly, to give, even when you're empty, detachment is misunderstood. They'll call it cold. They'll call it distant. They might even call you heartless. But here's the truth no one tells you. Detachment is not about feeling less. It's about feeling without losing yourself. Because there comes a point in life when you realize not everyone deserves access to your energy. And that realization changes everything. You were never meant to carry everything. You've been strong for too long. The one who listens, the one who understands, the one who shows up, even when no one shows up for you. You learn to hold space for others, even when your own space was collapsing. You gave your time, your attention, your patience to people who never truly valued it. And slowly, without realizing it, you started losing yourself. Because no one ever taught you this. Just because you can carry everything doesn't mean you're supposed to. Detachment begins the moment you understand that. Chapter 2. Detachment is not coldness. People misunderstand detachment. They think it means you've stopped caring, but that's not true. Detachment doesn't mean your heart is closed. It means your awareness is open. You still feel. You still notice. You still care. But you stop overextending yourself for people who don't reciprocate. You stop chasing explanations from people who never gave you honesty. You stop trying to fix connections that were never mutual. And for the first time, you choose yourself. Not out of ego, but out of survival. Chapter 3. Emotional discipline versus emotional reaction. Most people live in reaction. They feel something and immediately act on it. They get hurt. They respond impulsively. They feel ignored. They chase attention. They feel uncertain. They demand clarity. But detachment teaches you something different. It teaches you to pause, to observe, to understand before reacting. Because not every emotion requires action, and not every situation deserves your response. This is emotional discipline, and it's rare, because it requires control. Chapter 4. Boundaries are not cruel, they are necessary. There's a version of you that gave too many chances, that stayed too long, that tolerated too much. Not because you were weak, but because you cared deeply. But caring without boundaries leads to self-destruction, because people will take as much as you're willing to give. And if you never say no, they'll never stop taking. Detachment is where that changes. It's where you say, I care, but not at the cost of myself. And that's not cruelty, that's self-respect. Chapter 5. Not everyone deserves access to you. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Not everyone deserves to stay in your life. Not because they're bad people, but because they're not right for you anymore. Some people were meant to teach you lessons, not stay forever. And holding on to them, out of loyalty, history, or guilt, only keeps you stuck. Detachment gives you clarity. It shows you who's adding value and who's draining it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Chapter 6. When you stop chasing, everything changes. There's a moment when you stop chasing. Stop chasing validation. Stop chasing explanations. Stop chasing people who only show up when it's convenient. And in that moment, your energy shifts. Because chasing creates imbalance. It puts you in a position of need. But detachment, it brings you back to center. You no longer ask, why aren't they choosing me? You start asking, why am I choosing what doesn't choose me? And that question changes your standards. Chapter 7: The Hidden Cost of Overcaring. Being empathetic is a gift, but without boundaries, it becomes a burden. Because you start absorbing everything: other people's moods, other people's problems, other people's chaos. You walk into a room and instantly feel the energy. You adjust yourself to keep everyone else comfortable. And over time, you forget how to feel like yourself. Detachment protects you from that. It allows you to care without carrying, to support without sacrificing your peace. Chapter 8: You are not responsible for fixing everyone. This is where most people struggle. Because you've been conditioned to believe, if someone is hurting, you should help. If something feels off, you should fix it. If a relationship is broken, you should repair it. But here's the truth: you cannot fix people who refuse to fix themselves, and trying to do so will only break you. Detachment teaches you to step back, to let people face their own consequences, to understand that growth is personal and not your responsibility. Chapter 9: Emotional Maturity Looks Like Distance. As you grow, you change. You become quieter, more selective, more intentional, and people notice. They might say you've changed, and they're right, because you no longer tolerate what once drained you. You no longer engage in unnecessary drama. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. This isn't distance. This is growth. Chapter 10: Letting go is not losing, it's gaining. Letting go feels like loss at first. You lose people. You lose familiarity. You lose comfort. But what you gain is far more valuable: peace, clarity, self-respect. Because every time you let go of what drains you, you make space for what aligns with you. Chapter 11: The Power of Emotional Independence. When you stop depending on others for validation, reassurance, and identity, you become free. Free to think for yourself, free to choose for yourself, free to live without constantly seeking approval. And that kind of freedom, it's powerful, because now your worth is no longer negotiable. Chapter 12: Detachment is clarity. At its core, detachment is clarity. It's seeing people as they are, not as you wish they were. It's accepting reality instead of trying to change it. It's understanding that not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will value you. Not everyone will choose you. And being okay with that. You're not cold, you're clear. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant. Let them think you've changed. Because what they see as coldness is actually clarity. What they call distance is actually boundaries. And what they don't understand is that you didn't stop caring. You just stopped caring at your own expense. Because in the end, detachment is not about losing people. It's about finding yourself again. And once you do that, you'll never go back to being available for everything and valued by nothing. There's a version of you that kept trying to be understood, trying to be chosen, trying to make things work, even when they were clearly falling apart. And for a long time, you believed that effort would fix everything, that if you just cared more, gave more, explained yourself better, things would finally change. But they didn't. And that's when something inside you shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. You got tired. Not of people, but of losing yourself for them. The moment you realize you've been overgiving. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow realization. You start noticing patterns. You're always the one reaching out, always the one checking in, always the one trying to keep the connection alive. And when you stop, everything goes silent. That silence, it tells you everything you were trying not to see. Because real connection doesn't disappear when you pause. Only one-sided effort does. And that realization hurts, but it also frees you. Chapter 14. When effort is not reciprocated. Effort without reciprocity is emotional exhaustion. You give your time, your attention, your energy, and receive the bare minimum in return. Excuses, inconsistency, distance. And yet, you keep trying because you remember who they used to be, because you believe in their potential, because you don't want to let go. But detachment teaches you something important. Potential is not reality. And staying attached to what someone could be will keep you blind to who they actually are. Chapter 15. The Trap of Emotional Investment. The more you invest in someone, the harder it becomes to walk away. Not because they're right for you, but because you've already given so much. Time, effort, energy. And your mind convinces you, I can't leave now. It would all be wasted. But here's the truth. What's truly wasted is staying where you're not valued. Detachment breaks that illusion. It reminds you that your time is still yours, and you don't owe anyone your continued presence just because you gave it in the past. Chapter 16. When silence becomes your answer. There comes a point when you stop asking questions, not because you don't care, but because you've seen enough. You stop asking, why are they acting like this? Why don't they understand me? Why am I not enough? Because deep down, you already know the answer. And instead of chasing clarity, you accept reality. That's when silence becomes your response, not out of anger, but out of awareness. Chapter 17. Letting go of the need to be understood. One of the hardest things to release is the need to be understood by someone who refuses to understand you. You explain yourself again and again, hoping this time they'll finally see you. But they don't. And not because you're unclear, but because they're not willing. Detachment teaches you to stop explaining, to stop proving, to stop trying to convince someone of your worth, because the right people don't need endless explanations. They feel your value without resistance. Chapter 18. The Power of Pulling Back. There is power in stepping back, not disappearing, not avoiding, but consciously creating distance. Because distance reveals truth. It shows you who reaches out, who makes effort, who actually values your presence, and more importantly, it gives you space to think clearly, without emotional pressure, without constant influence, just you and your awareness. Chapter 19. When you stop reacting, you start seeing clearly. Reaction clouds judgment. It keeps you stuck in emotion. But detachment creates space, and in that space, you begin to see things differently. You notice patterns you ignored. You recognize behaviors you excused. You understand dynamics you once misunderstood. And once you see clearly, you can't go back to confusion. Chapter 20. The Shift from Attachment to Awareness. Attachment says, I need this to work. Awareness says, I see this for what it is. Attachment holds on, even when it hurts. Awareness lets go, even when it's difficult. This shift changes everything because now you're no longer controlled by emotion, you're guided by clarity. Chapter 21. You don't need closure, you need acceptance. Many people stay stuck, waiting for closure, an apology, an explanation, a final conversation, something to make it make sense. But closure doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from you, from accepting what happened, from understanding what it taught you, from choosing to move forward without needing anything else. That's real detachment. Chapter 22. Protecting your energy becomes priority. Once you experience peace, you become protective of it. You stop engaging in unnecessary drama. You stop entertaining toxic behavior. You stop giving access to people who misuse it. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become aware. You understand that your energy is limited, and where you invest it matters. Chapter 23. The difference between caring and overcaring. You can still care without losing yourself. You can still love without tolerating disrespect. You can still be kind without being taken advantage of. That's the balance detachment creates. It removes excess and keeps what's real. Chapter 24. Walking away without explaining. Not every exit needs an explanation. Not every decision needs validation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly, without drama, without arguments, without needing the other person to agree, because your peace does not require their permission. Chapter 25. The freedom that comes after letting go. At first, detachment feels like loss, but over time, it feels like freedom. You think less about them. You feel less affected by their actions. You regain your focus, and slowly, you return to yourself, stronger, clearer, more grounded. Chapter 26. Becoming selective with your energy. Not everyone gets access anymore. Not everyone gets your time. Not everyone gets your attention. And that's not ego. That's discernment. Because you've learned the hard way that being available to everyone leaves you empty. Chapter 27. The new standard. You start expecting consistency, respect, effort, clarity, and anything less no longer feels acceptable. Because you've experienced what it feels like to give too much and receive too little, and you refuse to go back. You didn't change, you evolved. People will say you've changed, and they're right, but not in the way they think. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You didn't become distant, you became selective. You didn't stop caring, you just stopped caring at your own expense. Closing line. Stronger impact. Because in the end, detachment is not about pushing people away. It's about no longer abandoning yourself, just to keep them close.